Chairman Corker, Ranking Member Cardin, esteemed members of the committee, thank you for providing me this opportunity to update you today on the progress of the global coalition to counter ISIL. And I'll refer to it ISIL and Daesh, which is the Arabic acronym, as we go through the day. I'm honored to appear alongside today one of the premier diplomats of our time, Ambassador and Assistant Secretary Ann Patterson. As the committee knows, the challenges in the region are great, and I returned to Washington on Friday from consultation with our Gulf partners and on the heels of a trip to Amman, Baghdad, and Erbil, where I met with the most senior leadership for wide-ranging discussions on the counter-ISIL strategy. This, in turn, follows immediately on the heels of the UN General Assembly, where President Obama convened a meeting of the counter-ISIL coalition and other key international leaders and groups engaged in countering violent extremism. It's been a busy time, and I might add that at the UN General Assembly, 3 other nations announced their membership and commitment to the counter-ISIL coalition: Tunisia, Nigeria, and Malaysia. As I appear before this distinguished committee today, it's important to take stock of the dire situation that was unfolding a year ago. ISIL had advanced unimpeded into Iraq. U.S. government personnel in Erbil and Baghdad were under severe threat, and ISIL laid siege to the Sinjar mountain, where they intended to annihilate the Yazidi population. Mosul had fallen, Tikrit had fallen, and we witnessed atrocities unparalleled in our experience. A year later, the coalition has applied significant pressure on this group, hitting ISIL with more than 7,500 airstrikes, nearly 6,000 of which the United States has conducted, and taking out, as the Pentagon announced last week, just as a measure of the effect, 70 senior and mid-level ISIL leaders from May, roughly 2 every other day. With 18 coalition members having trained more than 14,000 Iraqi and Peshmerga soldiers to date, we've denied ISIL freedom to operate in over 30% of the populated territory in Iraq held just last August. And the iconic city of Tikrit has been liberated and 75% of the population has returned. ISIL has been almost completely pushed back from Beji, where Iraqi Air Force aircraft flying U.S.-supplied F-16s have provided close air support to operations on the ground. And 4 columns of Iraqi troops are closing in on Ramadi, the province, the capital of the Al-Anbar province, which we anticipate in the coming months will be the next liberated city. As this coalition knows, the situation in Syria is no less challenging, as Ambassador Patterson has just mentioned, and the Russian presence has further complicated matters completely, which Ambassador Patterson will also address with us in the questions and answers. The United States continues to support ground forces in northern Syria to take back territory, and we now have cut off ISIL from all but 68 miles of the 600-mile border with Turkey, and today some of those forces are within 30 miles of ISIL's nerve center, if you will, its capital, Raqqa. But beyond the military aspects of the campaign that will inevitably receive the most attention, we must not forget the pressure that we exert against this group along other mutually supporting lines of effort. While we've taken back ISIL's primary border crossing from foreign terrorist fighters traveling between Turkey and Syria, we must stress that the Turkish border is the last line of defense in combating this phenomenon. As I've already mentioned, we're working with Turkey and local partners to clear ISIL from the final 68 miles of the border and prevent the further infiltration of foreign fighters, though the Russian incursion into Syria will likely make this more complex. We need all nations working together at each link in the chain of the movement of foreign fighters, from the point of radicalization to the point of violence and to the point of return and rehabilitation. You'll also recall earlier this year in May, our armed forces conducted a special operations raid on ISIL's finance, oil, and antiquities emir, Abu Sayyaf. We took from the raid 7 terabytes of information, hard drives, thumb drives, DVDs, CDs, and paper, and the exploitation of that information and material is giving us important insights into the organization of ISIL and its economic portfolio. And as ISIL continues to brutalize and extort its population for cash, the coalition is coordinating efforts to stabilize areas liberated from ISIL's grasp. Several nations, including the United States with the support of Congress, have made sizable contributions to a fund for immediate stabilization in Iraq, which we created with the UN Development Program. This multinational fund, multilaterally supported, has enabled Iraqi authorities to respond quickly to urgent needs requiring Iraqis to reestablish critical and essential services such as water, electricity, and medical services. The ravaged communities ISIL leaves in its wake bear witness to ISIL's true nature, one we are actively working with coalition partners to expose, ensuring that an Arab face and a Muslim voice is our messaging strategy. Just one example, the State Department's Center for Strategic Counterterrorism Communications have managed a multimedia campaign of testimonies from ISIL defectors, generating some 900 news articles and reaching an estimated population and an audience of 90 million. To that end, we as a people must never, ever accept that organizations like ISIL can become the new normal. We must never lose our moral outrage at what we have seen this organization do and is doing every day. Taking the fight to ISIL requires that we be flexible and patient in our efforts. It also requires close coordination with this committee and our colleagues in the Congress so that we can constantly evaluate our tactics and strategy and that we're resourcing them appropriately. I want to thank you, Chairman and Ranking Member Cardin, for this opportunity to continue this process of coordination and consultation. And as I end this term, I wanted to tell you, sir, I enlisted in the service when I was 17, and I spent my adult life in the military. But I've spent the last year working closely with the State Department. And I want to thank this committee for the support that it has given to the State Department, the Foreign Service, and the magnificent professionals in that organization. And when I thank Americans, or when I thank those who serve today, I call on Americans to not just thank our men and women in uniform. They should be thanking our diplomats and our employees of the State Department as well, sir. Thank you for that support.